right, we're going to get going here. So let me make sure as soon as I come up on the screen, and I'm on the screen. Okay, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. I hope you recovered from those football games this weekend too. Especially, you know, it's funny. I just switched off from the Saints Minnesota game, thinking that the Saints hadn't won because I wanted to watch Victoria on PBS. And I switched back, and the next thing I see are the bunch of Minnesota Viking players inside the tunnel and the fans screaming, and I just shook my head and was like, what happened here? Anyway, that was the extent of my weekend. Hi, everyone. It's Cioffi here. It's a Monday evening. We are going to look ahead at what is a really complicated situation here for my area anyway for Tuesday night and Wednesday. And we're going to bring up a couple of things right off the bat. Let me just find that watches and warnings. Where'd it go? Come on. There we go. It's hiding back here. Sorry about that. All right, so we've got really a lot going on today with this weather system that's dropping out of the Great Lakes, and you can see there's this extensive area of winter weather advisories and even some winter storm warnings along the western shore of Lake Michigan in and around Green Bay area. You've got advisories throughout much of the state of Wisconsin. And then you start rolling down through Indiana and Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, down through Tennessee. There was the northern flank of this winter storm warning area extended a little further north earlier. That's cut back a little bit, but we've got winter storm warnings for northwestern Mississippi, much of the southern half of Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and a good chunk of northeast Texas, and then extending down into parts of interior South Texas. And you've got surrounding winter weather advisories from there. Also have some winter storm watches up over some of the mountains in Northern California around Reno near Nevada and in the northeastern corner of the state. And in the Northeast, we've got winter weather advisories extending up from the Ohio Valley and through central Appalachians on through south central Pennsylvania, northeastern PA, northern New Jersey, except the counties near in and around New York City, the Hudson Valley. Then you start going north and west into northern Connecticut, into southern Maine and central New Hampshire, Vermont, and we've got winter storm watches up. So all this activity, and yet at the same time, it's not like we're dealing with any kind of intense system here. This is not, you know, like the last time where we had this wrapped up intense low off the East Coast. This is actually going to be two weaker systems that we're going to be dealing with. And you can see the extent of the precipitation on the radar at the moment. I'm not sure if there's missing data here across the south or not. It could be, because it looks like some of this data may be cut off. It's hard for me to see. But we do have some snow back up through the Ohio Valley and extending south and west. I'm curious as to whether there might be some missing radar echoes here. Let me just take a look at what's going on rather than pull up the I'll pull up the individual radars off screen and see what's happening here with respect to activity. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's some light activity showing up. There's nothing here that's extraordinary, but that's going to be picking up as we go through the nighttime hours and into Tuesday. So we're just going to be kind of waiting for that to happen. In the meantime, let me just say right off the bat, so I can just sort of do a couple of preemptive strikes here. I don't close schools. I don't close airports. I don't delay airlines. So if you have those specific questions, I would suggest that you direct them to wherever they need to be directed to. Call your own school district, call your airline, call your local airport, because they know the answers to those questions. I don't know what the criteria is. Every place is different. So so if you're asking me, don't ask me, okay? And as far as, I'm seeing Lord Kate here. You're asking about Nassau County, and again, schools are late or closed. I don't do that. To me, it's not the kind of snow that should cause a big problem, but these days, every time a flake falls, you wind up with delays in school closing. So check with your school district and just leave it at that. Okay, so here's what the Weather Service is doing. I'm going to give you kind of a variety of forecasts with regards to what's going on. This is the Weather Service's forecast for my neck of the woods, and basically it's a 2 to 3 inch snowfall for Long Island with a little less on the east end. I don't know if I agree with this, by the way. 2 to 3 inches as you go north and west across New York City, 3 to 4 along coastal Connecticut, and then on up as you get toward Route 84 in the Hudson Valley, and in Connecticut we're talking 4 to 6 inches. 3 to 4 as you move your way into northwestern New Jersey, and then we have to jump to the Mount Holly site and show you what they're doing. And I'm going to bring this up, and I'm also going to, in the meantime, bring up my map. So just give me a second here. So here's the Mount Holly forecast, which is raised from earlier. So 4 to 6 inch amounts, or even a bit more, as you go into the northwestern counties, Sussex, most of northern Morris, Warren County, and then you start to get into 2 to 3 inch amounts as you go south. And then once you get south of 195, this was added today. They had nothing here. Now they're going for up to an inch. So 195 south up to an inch. And then you've got 1 to 2, 2 to 3 for southeastern Pennsylvania, 4 to 6 in and around Reading and Allentown. Again, this is the Weather Service's view of this. I'm going to try and bring up mine in the meantime. I apologize, by the way. My voice is a little off still from my whatever incubus of viral plague that I was carrying, and my snow map's a little bit different, and I got to tell you, my confidence level on this is not all where it should be at this stage of the game, because of the fact that you've got a lot happening here aloft, and none of it is really none of it is dominating. You don't have one dominating feature here that's really controlling everything. It's a bunch of little things that we're having to deal with, and it makes life more difficult than it already is with respect to doing all this. Hold on, my browser just kind of got stuck on me, so let me just bring up let's see, snow. Oh boy. Bear with me, folks. I'm trying here. Here we go. So this is what I'm doing with respect to my forecast. And here it is. Okay, so I'm basically going for 2 to 3 inches over Long Island. I'm going to leave open the possibility that this could actually wind up being more, depending on how this all sets up. 1 to 2 for the Jersey Shore, 2 to 3 as you start to go north and west of 195. And then once you get north of 78 and Route 80, we're talking 3 to 5 inches. Also into northeastern PA. You see where my 2 to 3 inches goes back down. I might be a little bit aggressive here for Washington and Baltimore. It might be a little bit less. And then, of course, I've got 3 to 5 across much of Connecticut north of 15, and 5 to 7 north of Route 84 on up into Massachusetts and up toward Boston. And again, this is for mostly Tuesday night into Wednesday. So how is this all going to be playing out? Well, we've got a lot happening here with respect to the models and the upper air. It's not the simplest thing, because sometimes when you deal with systems that are not dominating in the atmosphere, when you're looking at a big storm, you can kind of know where everything is going to be coming from and how it will play. So in a sense, it reduces the uncertainty levels to some degree. But when you've got these sort of weak systems that you're dealing with, then it becomes problematic, because sometimes you can get this weak system that can kind of gel up just a little bit, and then you wind up with a problem. Let me just illustrate to you with respect to what some of the issues can be here with this, and I'm going to start off tight on this, and then I'll go wider, because I'm not going to want to leave anybody out. But I'm going to start with the new NAM model. This is the latest run, and this is one of the things that could wind up happening. So you've got this weather system that's coming in from the west, and it swings eastward. So when we get into Tuesday morning, according to the NAM, you've got snow already into northwest New Jersey. But notice as we go through the day, there doesn't make much progress. Kind of weakens that lead area, and then it's not really until tomorrow evening that you start to get that snow to come eastward. Now, at the same time, and at this point I'm going to get a little wider, and here we are, Watch that low that's off the Virginia coast. It's actually what we call an inverted trough. Okay, it's not quite a closed low. The isobars kind of, you see how they come up from the southeast and then they go, they go from southeast and then go southwestward on the other side. It does close off a circulation, but when you have a low that has an open that doesn't have a closed circulation, the isobars were the way they shaped up to the north of it. We call that an inverted trough. Now, one of the things that this model run suggested is that you could have where the system in the west remains weak and stays basically separate from the coastal system that develops its precip, and you get this giant hole that develops in the middle, and you wind up with not a whole lot of snow out of this. And I think that is something, even though I think this is an outlier, and the fact that the late afternoon NAM model runs lately have been a bit on the squirrely side, but this is one of the ways where you could wind up with not much happening. And of course, the NAM then does swing some snow down through coastal Virginia and in through coastal North Carolina. Not a lot, but it does swing some down there. I'm going to jump to the other version of the NAM model, which is the NAM 3-kilometer model. This doesn't have, it has the idea of that hole, but maybe a little bit less so. And you can see how the two systems are just kind of separate. But then the coastal low gels up, and then Long Island winds up, a good chunk of Long Island actually winds up in all snow rather than mixed precip or rain. And then you've got that snow up to the north and west, and then they kind of split up, and then they move to the east. Now, all of this is going to really depend on the structure of the upper air with this, and I'll show you what's going on with respect to that. You've got this trough, and let me back it up. All right, so we have this trough that's dropping in from Lake Huron. There's an upper low there. You can see the trough extends west-southwest. This kind of long, positively tilted northeast-southwest tilt. This long arm, and as it swings around, it kind of gets suppressed to the south because there's energy that's coming down in eastern Canada that's sort of acting as a weight on this and suppressing it to the south. And you can see how it rolls out to the east. You got this low that closes off North Carolina, but by then that's out in the ocean, and who cares? It's all gone. But this is one of the forecast issues. How much of that trough is going to get squashed, and how much won't get squashed? You could wind up with errors in both directions here, and it makes the forecast, extremely difficult. Probably more difficult than it is when you just had that big low the other day, because the other day, but now it's almost 2 weeks ago, because that's an obvious feature. It's one big storm, and you know what the variables are. Where's the western edge? Where's the western edge of heavy snow? Where's the cutoff of all the precip? Here it's different. Here we've got an area that's there that may or may not hold together well, and then we've got a new area that's going to be forming up from off the ocean. And will it or won't it? That's the big question. Now, on the wider view, you can see the extent of the snow running down into northeast Texas and in through the state of Texas, and this is the reason behind the winter storm warnings that are up for that part of the country as we move into Tuesday and into Tuesday night. And yeah, you know what? New Orleans might see snow yet again as we move into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and then that area just kind of translates to the east. So you get the idea here, folks. It's never simple. And I want to show you what the RGEM adds, like a little bit of a wrinkle to this. If I can bring the RGEM up, I'm having trouble with this menu lately. There we go. Great. So let me bring the RGEM model up, and we'll bring it back to the beginning. One of the issues of some of the models and how they handle this upper air storm system dropping southeastward. I don't have an upper air to show you, but if you look at the dash blue lines here, that kind of outlines what it looks like at the upper layers of the atmosphere in terms of the jet stream. And as we move toward Wednesday and into Wednesday night, you can see these closed circles here. The Canadian wants to have the RGEM and the regular Canadian model, the GGEM, want to have a more developed upper low there. And this sort of implies that not only will we see, you've got these two distinct areas. I'll back it up on the surface. So here's the area for the Northeast as we go into Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. It actually has more rain on the coast than anything else. And then you've got the system that develops in response to the southern part of that trough. And then suddenly, you've got precip Wednesday evening still hanging by along the coast from Long Island down into New Jersey and down into Virginia, North Carolina. So, how this all plays out is anyone's guess. I think the forecasts that are out right now are pretty reasonable. It's hard for me to argue against, anybody's particular viewpoint in all of this, because I think there's just too much at work here. Here's the RGEM's snow map, by the way, and it is fairly aggressive here for northern New Jersey. It looks like the 3-inch line is 195 in New Jersey and into southeastern Pennsylvania on up into northern Maryland is the southern edge of about 2 to 3 inches. And then you've got 4 inches across much of the northern third of New Jersey, all of the Hudson Valley, and on up into western Connecticut. This is, again, through Wednesday evening. And then you've got the separate area down in the Carolina Mountains into southern Virginia, southwestern Virginia, western North Carolina, and western South Carolina, and even some snows up through parts of Georgia and Alabama. This is all with that cold air. 1 to 3 inch snows throughout much of northeast Texas, on through southern Arkansas, through Mississippi, Alabama, and into North Georgia. So amazing, and even that northern edge of a coating just north of New Orleans there. Amazing that they might see snow for the third time in this winter. You can go 10-15 years without seeing a flake or an ice pellet there. Just really incredible. I'm going to go to I want to go to the GFS, the long range, and we'll look quickly at the upper air with the long range, because the argument over the pattern, not only just relaxing but perhaps altering a little bit. I think that's reasonable, but there are all sorts of things that could complicate the situation in the short term. I do think after a cold Wednesday, Thursday into Friday, we're going to warm up this weekend, and then we're going to have a system go to the Great Lakes with a trailing cold front, a little shot of cold air behind it. Then it looks like something else follows that late the week of, as we get into the weekend of January 27th and 28th. And sort of a ridge position develops here in the eastern states. I think what we're seeing here are chess pieces being moved around. I don't know where we're going to wind up with this when we get into the first part of February, but I think it's fair to expect some, certainly expect temperatures warming up in the eastern part of the United States, and activity shifting out to the west for a little while. I think eventually we'll probably see another shift back to the east, but for now it's pretty reasonable to expect a change after being in a rather cold pattern all along. For my buddies in Europe, if you, especially in the UK, enjoy the snow you're getting this week. I mean, during the overnight and during the day tomorrow, the GFS is very bullish with snows coming in from cold air being swept eastward from Greenland, and then you get more late in the week and into the weekend before the pattern warms up a little bit. And in fact, when we look at the snowfall for much of Europe through the next 5 days, there are some pretty hefty amounts being shown in parts in Wales and on northward up into Scotland, especially the west shore of Scotland, with some hefty snow amounts, even up, and also Ireland getting a fairly significant amount of snow from north to south. And going forward there, we don't add really too much after the next 5 to 6 days, because the pattern then changes one that would be a little bit more favorable to warmer weather and less in the way of snow. And on to southeastern Canada, and the afternoon model runs over the next 10 days, actually quite bullish over over Newfoundland and southeastern Labrador. Some decent amounts of snow in centimeters across Nova Scotia and on through New Brunswick. lesser amounts as you start moving northward into Labrador. You are going to have this weather system on in the east that's impacting the mid-Atlantic and northeast. One of those waves is going to impact Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and here it is. This is actually one that's running out ahead now that's developing. We've got a low that's now moving toward Nova Scotia at the moment with snow, and then that's going to head up into Newfoundland and out. And then we've got the next one, which is for Thursday and Thursday night. That takes a track slightly further to the west. And in the long range, with the pattern changing a little bit in the eastern part of the United States, this is the cold front that approaches early on the week of January 22nd. And you've got a system that's going up to the Great Lakes, and that brings rain for coastal areas of southeastern Canada and for Newfoundland until you get to the cold air that comes in on the west side. So let me just come back with you guys here. Hang on one second. I'll bring myself up full screen. And if, by the way, if you are a young person in school asking me about school closings, you need to do your homework, okay? So don't ask me. Hang on one second, folks. Let me just... MJM Tree Service and Maintenance, thank you very much for generously hitting a super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you. That's a couple of cigars for me. It makes me really happy. Thank you so much. And if I could help you specifically, just give me a shout. You know, just send me a message through Facebook or from my website. That would be great. Let me just put that up there. Okay. All right, so let me let's run through some of this. Hang on one second. I'm going to get the questions back, and we'll go from the beginning. A lot of comments here today. Okay, so if you missed it from the beginning, I'll say it again. If you're asking me about school closings, airport delays, etc., you need to call those places and don't ask me about it. And also, by the way, maps in terms of specifics, I use maps, the Nat Geo maps, and they have the counties on them. You should be able to know where your county is on a particular map. You can go on my website and pull up the snow map, or the snow map I just showed up here if you want to look a little more specifically, because I can't really be zip code forecasting every single one of you on here. I'd be here all day. Danielo Yakubov, yeah, the RGEM. The RGEM does a fair job a lot of the time, and I want to, I like to rely on that a bit more heavily than I rely on the other models when we get into the short range. And of course, with what it's trying to show with the system off the southeast coast for Wednesday night, I mean, I think ultimately that does wind up going out to the east, but it does complicate the scenario to a large degree. Joshua Pan, chance of coastal wave development bringing moderate snow to northern Virginia. I think for northeastern Virginia, and certainly down in southeastern Virginia especially, that's something we're going to have to watch to see if that is going to play out, the southern part of that trough. Models are doing different things with that, some of them handling them better than others. You want the northern New Jersey bump up for Garo Vestas. Well, I've got 3 to 5 for the northwestern counties, 2 to 3 maybe for the northeast, but that could easily go. There's room for upside here. Make no mistake. When you've got these weak systems, they can surprise you sometimes. One of them gets going maybe a little bit more than what models are showing at this point of the where we are. Still a good 24 hours away. You get a little closer. Sometimes you could pick up a little bit more moisture, and winds up being an extra couple of inches for somebody. I've seen that happen often enough. Thanks, David. I'm glad you got the mug, and drink heartily and heavily with it. Let's see. Pottstown, we're hoping for more than 2 inches. Well, if you got to get that system in the west to hold together a bit better, then you might be able to edge higher. With respect to snow amounts. Let's see. We've got, trying to just get everybody here. And Andrea Johnson, your forecast to get 1 to 2 inches in the next few hours. Where exactly are you? I'd be curious. Reaver 501, very worried about mixing on Long Island. Here's the situation with Long Island as far as mixing is concerned, Reaver. If precipitation is light, if models are overdoing the intensities and you wind up with light precipitation, then yes, you probably will see some mixing. But if we get into a little bit of intensity, the profiles of the atmosphere are virtually borderline. They could tip in either direction. And if you could get intensity in precipitation, that could effectively cool the atmospheric column, as I would describe it, from the top down. That would actually cool it by maybe as little as 1 degree, and that could make a huge difference for Long Island. So is there a mixing issue? Yes. Could that be easily corrected? Yes, it certainly could be. And the same would hold for New York City, although I tend to think for the most part that models may be underemphasizing the amount of cold air that we actually have. We have a lot of clouds that rolled in from the east today. A lot of the models were taking temperatures up in most areas in the low 30s, and they didn't get out of the mid-20s. And the models busted by a good 5 degrees. So I don't know if that error will carry over tomorrow. It probably won't carry over the full 5, but it might carry over by a couple of degrees. And models have been too warm in almost all of these air masses that we've been dealing with throughout the winter. Yeah, Garrow, you got to ask your school district. I can't help you with that. And you know what? Really, I don't even know why we're talking about schools closing here at all, because for me this is not an issue with respect to that. I just don't understand. That's a school district thing. Will there be? I guess if this plays out, there will be problems for the morning commute. I think that's pretty. That's pretty obvious. Let's see. And of course, down south, if we're talking about 1 to 3 inches across, parts of northeastern Texas and in through northern Louisiana and parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and so on, and Arkansas, where a lot of those towns, they don't even have snow removal facilities or snow removal equipment. That down there, 1 to 3 inches does shut them down for a while. And Nick Cortese, you know what? I don't know if we're going to get another big storm this winter. Maybe we will and maybe we won't. I mean, most winters we don't. But, we have seen a number of winters in the last few years. That is, where a number of winters in the last few years where we've had multiple big storms. So, you're rolling dice. I don't know, MJM Tree Service, you're maintenance, you're fine. I don't know who's calling you spam. I didn't notice that. Let's see. Oh, okay, I see. That was all taken care of. Let's see. I'm just trying to. You want the next thaw to last longer? The next thaw might, as we get into that pattern. But it could last for a couple of weeks. We'll see. You know what? Let's wait. Let's wait and get there first. Why don't I put the euro on? You know what? Yeah, the euro, William. It's limited what's available to the euro, and I don't always get to it. I kind of think that the European has not performed too well, so I didn't really think it was relevant to show it here. Now that we're in the short range, but I do show it from time to time. But I can't show every model. I just don't have the time to do it unless you want a 3-hour show. Yeah, Glenn Thompson. I was wondering. A few days ago, I thought maybe we might see some ocean effect snow flurries today on Long Island, and thanks for letting me know that there were some, because I thought I saw some flying around this morning, but I wasn't too sure. It was just a flake here and a flake there. Stephen Franco, you had some flakes in Oakdale. Okay, that's that ocean. That's that northeast wind, that cold northeast wind over the relatively warm ocean, producing that, and that's going to continue overnight. So don't be surprised. You won't even see it on the radar. It'll show up. It doesn't show up on the radar. It's basically like at the bottom 1,500 to 2,000 feet in the atmosphere. The radar doesn't pick it up, but I've seen the ground whitened up in cases like that, or maybe even a little bit more, just from ocean effect. Delvin, the Icon is the German model, and you want a 3-hour show. Oh, I don't know. I can't go. It's hard for me to go on, for the hour that I do sometimes. But the German model, I have shown it the other day. When it's relevant, and where it becomes important, I certainly will show it. Javon Johnson, you might get some snow in Columbia, South Carolina. I don't think that's impossible. And William Huber with snow in Miller Place. Thank you. Alberton would like a 3-hour show. Okay. Okay, an inverted trough, Reaver. Think of if you have a low that's developed but it doesn't have a completely closed circulation, the isobars on the east side, the winds from the east side are going to be from the southeast, and the winds on the west side are going to be northeast. So it's basically the isobars are shaped like an upside down V, and they don't close off. There's no complete closed circulation yet. That's what we call an inverted trough. I'll try and draw one up. Maybe the next live stream I do, I'll draw one up. Maybe an inch or two for Dover, Delaware, Matthew Goodman, depending on the track of what that, all of these systems running around, could be a little bit more. We'll see. Check my maps. The plumes, Joshua Pan. The plumes on the SREF model did go up late during this afternoon, showing basically 2 to 3 inch amounts in most places. It kind of doubled from what it was showing earlier today. So I don't know that the numbers are are important, and as much as the trend. I like to watch the trend on the plumes, whether they are going up or down by a significant way. So Tom Adams, you're asking me about February. We're still in mid-January. I don't do long range I don't get my head around the long range. Mago Minecraft's which model has performed the best this winter? I think in the short range, you have to go to the RGEM and the NAM. And as far as the longer range is concerned, I would say that none of the other models, the GFS, the European, and the Canadian, have done anything to write home about. Although I will say that the Canadian now, to me, at least, please pay attention to this. I'm not, because it may not be true for every spot, but at least for where I'm looking, the Canadian over the last month has done a bit of a better job in picking out the overall trend than the other models. I think the GFS has been kind of up and down-ish, and I think the European as a whole has just not done well at all, in my opinion. But I'm sure I'll get somebody to argue against me with that. Thank you, Delvin. You be my cop now. Make sure that nobody goes past 8 days. Ned drawing, can the storm move more south and east? I think you could see the low forming on that offshore, maybe a shade. It could move be in either direction. I think that'll be important to, snow and snow amounts near the immediate coast. The upper trough to the west is going to be, the upper trough to the west is going to have a bigger role in the snows that are going to be occurring inland. Chris Alley, good to see you here. Just jumped on at the last minute. I'm about to wrap things up today, but it's always good to see you, pal. And I'd be curious to hear from my friends. I know it's a little bit late. A lot of the folks from overseas are probably in bed right now. Maybe there's going to be commuting issues tomorrow morning in parts of England and Ireland with the some of the snow that they're going to get tonight. But if you are on, I'd be curious to know what you wind up with or what is actually going on there during the morning. Excuse me. Okay, so let's leave it at that, folks. Coming up on 35 minutes here, so we had a pretty good show. And we will be back, of course, tomorrow, 9:15 Eastern Time. Tune in on my Facebook page for for Joe Rayo and Joe Cioffi, the Joe and Joe Show. We'll do that at 9:15, and we'll live stream the NAM model, the new NAM tonight. Maybe that'll give us a better clue as to where we're going with this system for tomorrow into Wednesday. And in the meantime, you can check out the latest website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And thank you, any of you that are here for the first time. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free, and you'll get notified with new live streams that come on at least once a day. Matthew Goodman, it's nice to hear that you're planning to be a meteorologist. I'm glad that you find you like it, and it's your hopefully it's a deep-seated passion that can take you along. It's a fun field. I always say this, but if you can work at something you love, you will never work a day in your life, because every day will be you'll be doing something that you truly enjoy. All right, folks, have a great rest of your evening. Again, Facebook at 9:15 for the Joe and Joe Show. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow.